This is Better Under Pressure with me, Sara Milne, the podcast where successful people share what they do to thrive under pressure. You have the most taxing flying schedule, for example. You can be in 2 or 3 different countries in 1 week. What are your sort of go-to habits that allow you to stay physically fueled to manage this sort of schedule?
I have one particular ask when I have trips, and it's very simple and it's very hard to be disciplined to keep it. And that is that I have 2 evenings and 1 morning just for myself. I don't want a dinner. I don't want to see an owner. I don't want to see anyone, because you need your time to, build your own energy.
Thomas Dubaere and I go back a long way. In fact, almost a decade. When I first worked with him, he was Accor's general manager for the UK and Ireland. A dynamic, well-dressed family man and polyglot who, it turned out, had started his career with Accor straight out of the Brussels Hotel School and with a master's in management from the University of Leuven. Since we first worked together, he's gone on to become COO of Accor Northern Europe, responsible for the UK, Ireland, Scandinavia, the Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg, explains why he's a polyglot, and then most recently, 3 years ago, was appointed as CEO of Accor Americas, charged with premium, mid-scale and economy establishments. Now, he doesn't mention it in this podcast, but I happen to know that in his youth, he was a high-performing national-level sprinter in Belgium before opting to run hotels. So it's no surprise that he makes a lot of references to the alignment of high performance in business with high performance in sport. So, on your marks, get set. Thomas, it's an absolute joy to have you on. It's taken a while, but we've done it.
Well, my pleasure to be with you. And you're right, it's been a while, but I think it fits in perfectly with the topic we're going to discuss. So,
I totally agree. You will have lots to say on this topic, I have no doubt. So I want to kick off with this question. How would you describe, Thomas, your relationship with pressure?
My relationship with pressure, I think, has evolved through time. I think as you get older and as you go through life with a lot of pressure, you tend to learn how to live with it. And I would say now, the way my relation is, it's all about preparation and trying as much as possible to avoid the pressure that might come if you follow my list on this. Yeah. So very often, you're going to be in situations, whether it's I would say a tough presentation you have to do, whether it's a big budget you have to present, whether it's a tough owner that you have to deal with, whether it's a big deal you have to convince your board. I think you take whatever it is, it always comes with a healthy portion of stress, which I think is good. And I tend to be at my best when the pressure is high. But nevertheless, you need to be prepared. And there's different ways, to prepare on that. So I've got a couple of my own little techniques, and I'm sure many of us have. But that's how I would say is my relation with pressure. I tend to approach it as a positive, not as a negative, at least when I can prevent it.
That's interesting already, because I think, as you know, this whole context, this conversation is understanding the energy of pressure and the ways that different people move with it, actually, because it is an energy to move with, I think. And you've, in that sentence, said 2 things. Firstly, that you enjoy it or you need it. Maybe that's a different thing, enjoying and needing it, but there is some sort of positive relationship that you have with it. But at the same time, you put in the word stress, and I'm interested in that, because stress, I think, has a reputation for being negative, particularly if it goes into distress. So how have you evolved your relationship with pressure so that it remains something that you either need or enjoy, or it moves you in some way as a positive?
As I said, pressure and stress it evolves as you get older. So I might need to go back more than a couple of years.
Go on.
I had I mean, I never thought when I was 16, 17, 18, 19, whenever, that I would be doing what I'm doing today. It was never really on the table, not at all. And my only dream at that time was sports. I lived for sports. I stood up for sports. I left many things behind for sports. I sacrificed a lot for sports. But unfortunately, the fact I'm sitting here kind of shows that it didn't get me at least the dream that I wanted at that time. So I without not to go too much into the detail, but I had some injuries. So long story short, my sports dream didn't happen. But there's two ways to tackle that. And I have to say, I had a good coach. I had a good coach. And at that time, he told me there's two ways to approach. He didn't say failure, but he said something that probably interrupted your plan or your dream or whatever that is. You can take it, sounds easy, and it's not easy. You can take it in a good way and learn from it. Or you can sit back, sob about it, depress yourself about it, and just go in a negative spiral. And I think, well, at least I know, I went the positive. I said, in a way, I think disruption, you remember, we talked about this many years ago. Disruption can strengthen you, can reinforce you. You just need to have the right mindset. And I very often, still today, my team knows that. I probably, if you would look behind me, but you probably can't see it, I've got more books about sports coaches than I have about pure business. Because I strongly believe there is a very significant link between both worlds. And in sports, you have to have a good balance, physical balance. You need, of course, your technique. You need good emotional balance. And I think I've learned from that, and that's the way how I'm using it today in business situations. And I am quite, I would say, obsessed about this. What I mean obsessed, it's like an athlete before a race. The day before or the week before, of course, he's going to make sure he's fit. He's going to make sure he's got a good night's sleep. He's going to make sure he doesn't drink. He has a good diet. He's well prepared. He's not overtrained and mentally ready. I kind of adopt a similar approach when I know that in 1 week or the day after, I might have a difficult moment. I'm relatively obsessed about this, and athletes are also, but in a good way.
Yeah, and I think what you're highlighting there, which I really love, is, and by the way, there are so many people, aren't there, that have had some sort of experience outside of their leadership role that is in somehow, and it's so often sport or performance of some type. I think probably 85% of my guests on here, when you ask them about pressure, go back to a sporting event or an exam. You know, something where, you know, you've been under, there's some high stakes involved in that. But what I really wanted to pick up on from what you've just shared there is this idea of being quite almost forensic around where the moments are that deserve that preparation. And I think that's what I've noticed working with you, Thomas, and actually with many leaders, is that one way of managing getting the best out of the energy of pressure is to accept that it's not constant, and that actually there are particular moments that are going to require more of you than others. And in some way, that allows some sort of, I'm going like this with my arms, like ebb and flow, as opposed to this constant, incessant pressure. That's what I'm hearing from what you've just said. Would you say that's fair?
No, but I fully agree. As you say, you know, pressure and stress, I mean, they are, of course, related. The difference is that stress will build up if the pressure is continuous. If you're constantly in pressure, you can have all the techniques in the world. At one point in time, you won't survive. So how do you manage that? And again, I mean, it's not like I have every single day of the week, I would say, a complicated moment, a difficult discussion or whatever. I mean, you have highs and lows, you would say, highs and lows. But the trick is also to manage the lows. So not only to manage the highs. And I don't always want to come back to sports, but I try to, I'm 59, I'm going to be 60 soon. And I honestly believe a good balance between, I would say, your body and your mind, as they obviously say, is a good part of how I can go calm through a week, and how I can manage the lows and I can manage the highs. Because from nature, I'm quite impatient. From nature, I have probably too much energy. And too much energy can also bring over to your team pressure and stress. So how do you control that? And I think, well, I try to stay fit. I take my time off. I think that's important. I've learned that from many athletes. Would say the rest time is surely as important as the training time. Hence why many athletes get injuries, because they do not respect their rest time. So as I said, I am obsessed about this, but these things seem to work. It seems to work. And I often share, I often share this with the people I work. Certainly when I see people that might be a little bit under too much pressure for whatever reason, I tend to support them or at least guide them, so they can also control that. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. It's up to you. So.
Yeah. Well, let's break that down for a second, because it sounds like you understand what you need in order to manage it, or you have done over the years. So can you give a specific example, Thomas, of a pressure moment for you now in your current role, when you notice it and how you deal with it? Can you just almost give us a step-by-step way of what you do to manage it?
Well, look, I'll give you an example which is very hot now. I mean, good. By the way, I'm so happy to have this moment with you, because I'm in the middle of a budget week. And if there's one week in the year that I'm not going to say it stresses me out, but which I probably dislike the most. By the way, I don't know many CEOs who like doing budgets, by the way, but I'm one of them. So I know we, like every year, our budgets for the following year are always more demanding, and of course you always need to do more. It's in the business. And as we speak, in 3 weeks' time, I'm going to have to present that to the board in Paris. So that's a very concrete example. Okay.
Yep. Great. Let's go with that.
So the first thing, I come back to what I said initially. It's a good preparation. Yeah. Just make sure that you surround yourself by the right people that can build that budget that I eventually have to present, because I'm not presenting my budget. I'm presenting the budget of the region. And I am very particular about this, meaning I will never present a slide, a presentation, a number, a word, anything that I do not understand. And this is you have to be obsessed about this. Because the worst thing that can happen to you is getting a question and you don't have the response. So what I tend to do 1 week before we go to Paris, I have a trial. I sit with my team. By the way, I've learned that from you, Sara. And I will present to my team the budget, and I will tell them, you play the devil's advocate. Okay. You play the board. Just throw anything at me, and each from your specific expertise and domain. And that really, that helps me, but there is a limit to that. So what I also do, I tend to at least surround myself with 2 or 3 people from my team that come with me to Paris when I know the topic might be a little bit outside my comfort zone, because I mean, I'm not a technical expert in all the domains, of course. But I think it's, you do a trial, you get the feedback from the team, you improve it, and it just gives you so much more confidence. I think the word confidence is important in pressure. You know what you're talking about. It's 80% of the win. Yeah. Okay. You'll never manage the 100, but so I think that's a very concrete example. It's not the highest pressure moment of the year, but nevertheless.
And it's current, right? It's in your system right now. Yeah. Yes. And what I particularly, I suppose, celebrate in that is this idea of, I mean, my word might be rehearsal, practice, but it's it's saying something out loud in front of your team before you have to say it in front of the board. And I think this is such an important point about pressure, is that we sometimes unhelpfully raise the pressure on ourselves so that it becomes a negative pressure because we're saying it for the first time in front of the audience where it really matters. That's high risk, isn't it, Thomas, really? And yet so often we put ourselves in that position. No wonder our body freaks out with that. Whereas if you go to high performing, anybody who's in a high performance, high stake environment, they would go over it in as a drill almost, so that when the energy of pressure comes in, your system's already rehearsed it on some level.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And to be fair, it is sometimes harder and tougher to do it in front of your team
Yeah.
than to do it in front of the board. Because in front of your team, you certainly don't want to go off. In front of the board, I mean, if at one point, you don't have the right answer or whatever, you can always say, look, fine, I'll come back to you. You can work your way around it. But in front of your team, you're putting yourself very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think that's another strength I can see in many CEOs that I'm trying to build myself. Be humble, okay? Be humble, and probably in my position, I've got 14 people in my team with 14 different expertises. I mean, I'm not an IT expert. I'm not a sales expert. I'm not a finance expert. I'm, at the end of the day, I'm general, and I have to manage that team. So do not be afraid to learn from them and to get things wrong.
Yeah.
It's what I say. It's easier when you relate to your own children. It's so easier because what you say to your children is basically what you're saying to yourself. Okay. So if you have I've got my daughter now who's in an internship in Mexico. So you can imagine before she left, oh, Dad, it's another country, it's another culture, it's another language. I don't know anyone. How am I going to do this, etc. So same thing. I try to support and to prepare her. Say, prepare for these things, and probably why don't you make a list of all the things that you would like to take out of those 6-month internship? Make it something. Make it your ambition. Make it your another word I like. Make it your ambition. And if it becomes yours and you own it, I think you have it better under control. Yes.
Yeah. And are you making the same? So I was going to ask you the question about when you do that sort of humble rehearsal with your team, what do you see as the real benefit for them in that when you do that?
Well, I think the first benefit, if as a CEO you open yourself up like this to your team, that is already a benefit. It's a benefit of credibility. And humbleness, if you do it authentically, if I can use that word, genuinely, because there's different ways to do it. It is very respected by the team. Certainly, I mean, the fact I'm based in Brazil now for the moment, so I have to do with 12 Brazilians, or let's say 10 Brazilians, 2 Argentinians. You have different cultures. And in the Latin American culture, being, I would say, open, being transparent, being humble, trying to get into their culture is massively appreciated already. But at the same time, you are indirectly coaching them to do the same. So I will get from it directly. You are, without telling them, you hopefully convince some of them, well, actually, this is a good way to prepare myself and to control my own pressure or stress.
Yes.
And I dare to say, I know, not all of them, because that's how it is, but some of them duplicate that same practice. I know. So it's a two-way street. You get, and indirectly you give.
Yes. I love that. What would you, so you've touched on it around how you make sure that your own physical energy is topped up, because I know, Thomas, that you have the most taxing flying schedule, for example. So, you can be in 2 or 3 different countries in 1 week. what are your sort of go-to habits that allow you to stay physically fueled to manage this sort of schedule?
I have one very particular ask when I have trips.
Mm-hmm.
It's very particular. It's very simple, and it's very hard to be disciplined to keep it. And that is when I, for example, well, 2 weeks ago I was 10 days in Mexico. That's almost 2 weeks, because well, and I told the people who organized my trip, I stand on it that I have 2 evenings and 1 morning. It doesn't sound a lot, but it's complicated. Just for myself. Just for myself. I don't want a dinner. I don't want to see an owner. I don't want to see anyone, because you need your time to, build your own energy. Because when you do those trips, every momentum you have to start all over again. Yeah, I give the example when you have in one day 3 interviews with journalists. When you're at the 3rd one, you're so bored of listening to yourself that you tend to, if you're not careful, you will fade the messages you want to pass. Very often, your first interview is the best. Your third is the worst. So same thing. I would say never 3 interviews in a day. The week is actually built in a way so I feel comfortable, and I have sufficient time to fuel again, energy, and come a bit to rest, because it's a fatigue. You fly 10 hours, you arrive, you go to the hotel, take a shower, and 2 hours later you're on your first meeting. And those people, well, they don't know.
No.
Probably they don't care. So you always have to be at your best. It's very similar to an actor who is on stage. I've got my nephew who is doing musicals, and he's got like 2 every day, 5 days in a row, etc. And every time you have to start all over again, because the audience is different, with the smile, with the energy. It's the same for us. So make sure you have and I also have, in between meetings, I minimum try to have a 1 hour, if that's possible. Just give me 1 hour in between. Better go for 10 days to Mexico than for 6. If you have to fly anyway, because if not, you squeeze it all in. So they're very practical ways to organize your trip.
But you also got people around you who know those sort of rules for you, your personal rules.
Yes, but nevertheless, because let's not forget, whether it's Mexico, Colombia, doesn't matter. You are welcomed by the team. And they have their own agenda, of course. They want you to see this, and you have to do this. I mean, they have their own. So you need to balance that a little bit, and I have to remind it systematically, because it's a trap. You could quickly fall back into the trap. And it doesn't work, to be honest. These moments of little rest make the peak moments so much more productive, and they're more fun. It's like every time you prepare a little bit for what's coming. People who say back to back meetings, I say, well, guy, this is you're wrongly organized. You're wrongly structured. You cannot do that. Nobody is made for back-to-back meetings.
No.
And unfortunately, the pandemic and this whole virtual meeting approach hasn't really helped. Feels like we're doing more meetings than we did ever before the pandemic. So you need to control that. And by the way, here in my head office, we have a 1 day, Thursday, which is a no meeting day. We have a no meeting day. We put that in place not so long ago. Does it work? Let's say for 80%. Doesn't work for 100%, but it works for 80%. So,
what sort of things do you see breaking that rule? Because I think there's quite a few organizations that have that rule, and my experience is that it's often broken in much the same percentages as you just said. But what do you feel breaks an agreement like that for people?
We find the right word for that. Discipline.
Personal.
Yes, it's discipline. I mean, if I would evaluate that meeting that broke the rule, I am 100% sure it could have been done the Friday, the Wednesday, or the week after. It's discipline. It's and that's why if you try to have too many topics or too many targets or too many objectives, etc., people will lose, they will lose focus. So you rather choose 2 or 3 or 4 and make sure that everybody focuses, sticks to that. And whatever you say to whoever you talk, you come back to that. This is what you need to focus on. This can wait. It's discipline. It's honestly discipline. I'm one of those, to be honest, that once in a while breaks that rule. I have to be there. And sometimes it's out of my control. Out of my control would be, well, if the president of the group or whatever wants to talk to me, wants a meeting, well, I mean, unfortunately, it's out of my control. But discipline.
Yeah. Listening to Thomas, I'm reminded of the quote, "Discipline is the ultimate act of service to your future self." He really brings this to life for me in this example. Actually, I want to add an extra few words onto the end of that quote. The ultimate act of service to your future self and an act of service for others. He's talking about rehearsing for pressure moments, not just for himself, but with his team. Thomas practices, yes, and not in a safe little bubble on his own, whispering to himself, but out loud in front of his team. I've said this many times before, but if you don't rehearse something, saying it out loud for the first time in front of your audience is a high-risk strategy. When Thomas chooses to rehearse in front of his team, he's effectively saying to them, I don't have all the answers, I'm willing to get things wrong in front of you, and I care enough about the imminent moment of pressure to prepare properly. He used the word humble in the same sentence as discipline, which is fascinating. And actually on reflection, yes, it does require a sense of humility for a CEO to be open enough to practice in front of their team. There's humility in saying, I don't have it nailed, I need to practice, I need to prepare, I need your help. By rehearsing with his team, he'll get their insight and their challenge. There's also generosity in it, because when you rehearse well, when you model preparation, when you make time for practice under pressure, you're not just helping yourself, you're actually giving your team permission to do the same. As he put it, you get, and indirectly you give. I really respect that, because pressure doesn't expose what we know, it exposes what we've practiced. I also love the story about his daughter going to work in Mexico. Instead of feeding the fear, like new country, new culture, new language, he helps her focus on her ambition, asking her, what do you want to get out of these 6 months? That's an example of discipline as a mental habit, choosing ambition over fear. And it's not about pretending that fear isn't present, but choosing where you put your attention. And then he talks about his travel rules. I work a lot with leaders on their non-negotiables, for travel in particular. Sticking to these makes a massive difference to their energy and their recovery. For Thomas, it's protected evenings, a quiet morning, gaps between meetings. It's discipline in the service of performance and turning up at his best. And he says these moments of little rest make the peak moments so much more productive and more fun. Recovery is not a reward, it's a strategy. Discipline is about knowing when to stop, when to reset, when to create space, so that when the pressure moment arrives, you're actually 100% available for it. So as you're listening now, here are 3 questions that you can ask. What important moments would benefit from rehearsal? Not in my head, but out loud, in front of others. 2, where can I avoid feeding the fear by disciplining my focus onto the ambition? 3, what simple travel rules, or even meeting rules, could I put into place to protect my energy and my recovery? Because discipline is about being deeply kind to the future version of you and to others who want to feel at their best under pressure. Would you say, Thomas, like now as you've evolved, because I know that you've been evolving these practices over the years for yourself, what would you say is the number one thing that tempts you, or does in fact pull you out into unhelpful pressure?
Negativity.
Say more.
Negativity. I might have to explain that. Not that I see everything at all times positive and that I am the the walking optimist day in, day out, but I have difficulty to manage or accept constant negativity. There are people who tend to, unfortunately, focus more on what's not working than on what's working.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, sometimes things don't work. So you also need to look at that. So I like people who kind of balance that out. So the pressure I really don't like is that one. When I have, people that constantly and only confront me with things that don't work.
And what do you have to consciously do to manage your reaction to that? What does your, in my words, what was your dog brain? What does your dog brain want to do in those moments? And how do you manage that?
Well, if you would have asked me that question 10 years ago or 15 years, because as I said, you evolve, luckily. 10 years ago, my dog brain would have said, you know what, give me the problem, I'll fix it. Okay. But as you grow in the organization, as you get, of course, more responsibility, you just you can't manage that. It's just impossible. It's the same. People who stick to micromanagement will never survive. Okay, you need to give trust to your people. You need to give them autonomy. Yes, they can make a mistake. They can make it twice, but preferably not 3 times. But I would say today I would bring it back to them, and I would say, look, I understand it's a problem. What is your suggestion? How are you going to fix this? Fix it. Or next time, instead of coming to me with the problem, come with a couple of alternatives, a couple of solutions, etc. Because some people have a way to manage their pressure by sharing their pressure. Yes. And you need to be careful that you do not absorb it, because it's just going to add on we all have our pressure. We all need to deal with it in one way or the other. So thank you, my friend, but this is on your side. I'm happy to support. I'm happy to listen. I'm happy to give you some tips, but I'm not going to get involved. Yeah, mm-hmm. I'm not going to get involved. It's all about escalation. And certainly in my world, I spend a lot of time with investors, with owners, with partners, et cetera, et cetera. But I tend to try at least to be the last one to be escalated. Because if you dive in immediately, they'll never let go. And you're just going to add on things that should be managed by a team or by whoever. Yeah. Careful not to absorb the pressure of another. Try to depressure the other, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yes. And on paper, if someone read your working load and your travel itinerary, you might ask the question, how do you fit your family life? How do you fit your like leisure, your fun with your family in around something like that, Thomas? And I know that you moved your whole family to go over to Brazil. What was it in the middle of COVID, I think? So how do you manage that dynamic? Because I think that's a really tough and real tension for many leaders.
It's not an easy answer, Sara. It's not an easy one. Because I think you learn from your own experiences, and it's very weird when you touch on the fact that I brought my family to Brazil. I was in an exact same situation when I was 11 years old.
Oh wow!
The same situation. It's almost unbelievable, but it's like history repeated itself, but just with different people. And I just for the record, I remember I was 11 years old, and I remember as it was yesterday. We were living in Belgium. My father came home from work. We sat down at the dinner table, and he said, I have news. Okay. And he said, we're moving to Barcelona. I was 11 years old. I probably didn't even know where Barcelona was at that time, but okay. And when? In 3 months' time. So we as children, and I was with my 2 sisters and my mother and my father, we were confronted with 4 changes, abrupt changes. I know you say when you're young, you tend to absorb, more a sponge, you tend to absorb these things. But nevertheless, I was 11, my other sisters were 13 and 15, 16. So we moved to another country. We had to learn another language. They put us in an English school, so that was 2 languages. You have to understand another culture. You leave behind all your friends. Honestly, you see it all black. Everything was bad. Let's put it like this. So I went through that experience, and now exactly 5 years ago, it was exactly the same. Well, actually, we had it already like 15 years ago when we moved from Belgium to London. But I think moving from London to Brazil has a bit more impact. And my children were older. My son was 19. My daughter was 16. So you can imagine the same thing. Moving to another country, another culture, another language. Portuguese is not easy. In the middle of the pandemic. My daughter went to school for the first 6 months in Brazil virtually, not meeting anyone. I mean, it was even worse than when I had my little experience. And I have to say, I honestly had no clue how I was going to manage this. And I think it just came day by day as I tried to motivate every little positive thing that popped up. The first time that my daughter came back, that was after the 6 months virtual from school, and she says, "Oh, I'm invited with friends to go there." That's a positive. I was actually waiting to get those positive moments. It's not easy. Many people would picture it as having taken an egoistic decision because it was a business decision. At the same time, it was also a family decision. I want my family to see, to experience what I can experience, which is other horizons, other countries, other cultures, other languages. And to be fair, 2 years later, at least I'm getting the return from them that it was a good experience. But there's an expression, they say you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. Sometimes need to accept that you need to break some eggs and you need to be tough. But there were a difficult 6 months. At one point in time, I thought, did we really make the right decision? And then it's when you need to continue to focus, bite in it and say, I'm not going to let go. It was a good decision. Let's make this work. Let's make it work.
Yeah. Gosh, there's lots in there. You just reminded me just about how many languages you speak fluently, Thomas, and now I understand why. Like you've been taken across ever since 11 to various different places where actually it's been.
I mean, take it back. When I was 11, I wasn't very happy to go to Barcelona and whatever. But now I'm in a situation where probably thanks to that experience, I got to open my eyes and say, well, probably having experience abroad is a good thing. And meeting other people, cultures, and speaking another language is a good thing. I say to my children, every language you speak opens another door. So does that mean you have to speak 5? No, I didn't say that. But by the way, you cannot live in a country if you do not adopt the language. If you don't speak, you then never get into the culture of the country. Doesn't work. And that's in business wise, it's the same. People need to be close to the business, to your people. In my case, hotels and teams and owners and investors. You cannot do that. If I have to speak to investors in Mexico, Colombia, or Chicago or Canada, you have to be there. It doesn't work like this. You have to be there. And that's important.
Where do you get your biggest energy from, Thomas, in the work that you do?
Twofold. Most of my energy I get about achievements. We had, without going into the granularity of it, but we had a couple of deals this year, and achieving them after having worked on it for a year and a half, except not alone, of course, with part of my team. That gives me a lot of energy for the next one. And people give me energy. People, not everyone, but people give me energy, and I know where to go when I need it. I like to be fed. This is a good example. When 2 years ago, when we started working, I could have taken the decision to have individual coaches for some of my people. And I thought about this and said, no, why not have a team approach? Let's do this as a team. And again, it relates a lot to sports. I love listening to these people who are, I'm not talking about individuals. I'm not like athletes or tennis players, but people who are in rugby teams, football teams, rowing teams, whatever, where it's a whole bunch of people. You need to be focused, and I quite like that. So I think I get my energy from my team. From my team.
Yeah, and those deals you said it happened over a year. So that to me is it's a marathon, isn't it? It's a long haul of achievements. Small. And how what would be your recommendation to people that are dealing with something that's taking time? It's not a quick win. It's actually probably a year or more to go towards that goal. How do you keep the pressure positive? What do you think is the biggest piece of advice to keep a team and yourself on track for a long-term achievement?
I think again, I'm going to repeat myself. It starts with a good planning in the beginning. Do not overpromise. Sometimes we are a bit too ambitious, so don't overpromise. And before you want your excitement to share that possible deal, in my case, I would say with Central, with Global, make sure you're already at a level that you're going to achieve it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I would say a good planning, take the time. Do not over promise yourself. I think that's one. Constantly focus on the end goal. If we do this, this could be a game changer. If we do this, this is going to be putting our region even more on the map. We have a big geography. We're very present in Brazil and 3 other countries, but we have ambition in other countries. If we do that deal, it opens the door. It gives perspective for more. So, because the deal in itself is in many cases the start of something else. And again, I mean, this is a bit down to my nature. If I wouldn't have a deal to work on, again, then the pressure probably would be lower. And if the pressure would be lower, I think I would be less active. So a deal is barely finished when we should be hungry enough to look for the next one. And then if it's a year and a half, I mean, some deals take 2 years, Sarah. I mean, sometimes it takes 2 deals, depending on what you talk about. You just need to make sure that whoever is the leader of that deal, because it is not always myself, but whoever is leading it has, I would say, quarterly intervals where he or she can share with the team, this is where we are, that's what we're doing, we're almost there, I need your help, etc., etc. Keep it alive. You need to keep it alive with different thresholds. You cannot just let it go. I mean, with my team, I have a monthly, what I call one-on-ones. No agenda, no nothing. I meet them more than once, but as I'm traveling a lot, you have to structure those one-on-one moments where they can share with you, well, look, that's what I'm doing. I got my time with you. And it cannot be sporadically. I used to do that. The big mistake I made many years ago when I spoke to my team, I said, if you want to talk to me, you just come and see me. That doesn't work. And it doesn't work. But and I thought it worked. And I thought I was being very, I used to have an open door policy, you know? And someone in my team once told me, you know that your open door policy actually feels more like a closed door policy? How does that work? Well, because, if we don't plan it, then we come in, half of the time you're busy, so your door might be open, but you know what I mean? It's so you need to structure those things also. I've learned through life to structure more. I am a bit more on the chaotic side sometimes, but and make sure you have a right and a left hand who supports you in that.
Yes.
You need a good PA, you need a good PMO, people who keep you in line. You need that.
Yeah.
At least I need that.
Well, I mean, going back to your sporting analogy, the same is true for elite sportsmen and women as well. Isn't it true? Like they're surrounded by people that are making sure they're in the best possible state
That's what you need
to achieve.
Yeah, you cannot. There is one. It's interesting. There's one tennis player. I forgot his name. He's an Australian guy. He's actually quite good tennis player, but sorry, I forgot his name. And he doesn't have a coach. It's very rare. He's like he coaches himself. Yeah. And the guy is it's a pity I don't know his name now. But anyway, the guy is seen by the tennis world as one of the biggest talents out there, but never ever got into the top 5, the top 10, etc., etc. A bit of a loose cannon. But it shows that you can have all the talent in the world. Yeah. You need something around it that structures that.
Yeah.
You need a mental coach in sports. You need that technical coach. You need your physiotherapist. You need all that. A one-man show is not going to make it. And it's the same. I use the people. I use my people. They use myself, I hope, just to make sure you're on track on that.
Yep.
It's important.
There's a particular kind of pressure that comes with long-term goals. You know, the kind when the outcome isn't clear yet. The kind when there's no immediate feedback to reassure you that you're on the right track. And yes, in those moments, you definitely need a plan or a strategy. But what Thomas is talking about here is the ability to hold your nerve. That starts with keeping the purpose alive inside you. It's a lot harder to inspire those around you with long-term goals that you're starting to doubt yourself. Thomas's story of moving his family to a new country in the middle of a pandemic brings this to life. Long-term goals become lived experiences that stretch you and the people around you. And what he showed is that the leadership work over that stretch is emotional and tactical at the same time. It's about creating enough clarity and energy to keep the possibility alive inside you first and foremost. Because if you stop believing in the ultimate end goal or opportunity, it's a lot harder to convince anyone else. I want to underline a few things that help Thomas hold his nerve, so that you can then apply them to any current situation that you might be in. I'm calling them 3 positive ways to hold your nerve. First, keep the belief alive inside you. Thomas described needing to feed himself with hope. Make that a practice. Create a simple, repeatable way to remind yourself why this matters. You know, for example, a line that you can return to, like a drum beat or a tuning fork that keeps you aligned to the note when you're playing an instrument. Ritualize it so that when you feel the pressure of uncertainty, you remind yourself why it matters, and you've got that close to hand. Creating ways to keep the belief alive internally lets you generate energy externally in others. Second, make progress visible. Long-term pressure can easily turn into negative pressure when the journey feels endless. Celebrate each movement that you're making. Progress is a human imperative. Communicate to make progress tangible. Name small wins, mark milestones. When things don't go to plan, which they often don't, share the lessons. Tangible, small moments of progress turn pressure into momentum. And third, curate your close circle and protect your one-to-ones. Thomas relied on a few people to reinvigorate him when times were tough. Map the handful of relationships that either move the work forward or restore you emotionally, and then protect a regular routine of one-to-ones with them. Those conversations are where alignment, problem solving, and morale get preserved and boosted. It's really helpful to remember that long-term goals aren't about being constantly confident. It's about having ways to hold our nerve. What I really appreciate about listening to Thomas is that these 3 areas really help him, and I'm going to say them again. Tending belief inside you, making progress visible for those on the journey with you, and surrounding yourself with people who help you stay steady when the outcome is still unknown. Sounds pretty relevant in the world right now, I'd say. I'll leave you with 3 questions to ponder if you're currently in the middle of an unknown. Ask yourself, what small, visible signs of progress can I track and share now that will make the future goal feel alive and keep momentum? Who are the 3 or 4 people I need to speak to regularly, both to move the work forward and help me to hold my nerve? And finally, what's one simple practice that I can use to stabilize myself when doubt creeps in? In terms of shed, Thomas, what would you say is your biggest contributor to your turning pressure, keeping pressure positive, enlivening, exciting? What would you say from your shed is fundamental?
Yeah. I have daily ones, and I've got, I would say, quarterly, or I don't know. But let's say the first thing, you told me earlier, how do I get a balance with my family? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm more with my work and traveling and in the plane than I am at home. That's a fact. So when I am at home, I tend to, as much as possible, combine both. So let's say I've got a trip to wherever, Colombia, whatever. Well, why my children not anymore because one is in London and the other one is now in Mexico. But why would I not tell? And I do that, and I tell my wife Barbara, I say, why don't you just come along, and we'll just extend it with a weekend. There's a way to combine it. Yeah, and actually in our business, you can see more and more. This is interesting. Purely in my business, you can see more and more how people are blurring the lines. So when people used to travel just for corporate business, and then go back and then say, oh, by the way, I was in Rio for a convention. It was really nice. Why don't we go back? Well, why don't you do it at the same time? And we call that new segment bleisure. It's when business and leisure, mixes. So if it's in my bit, why would I not do the same?
Yeah.
So I do the same. When I get the opportunity, I say, come along, take the plane, arrive on Friday, and we'll stay until the Monday. So that's where, and I love to travel. I'm in a beautiful region. I mean, I have to be. I love Europe, but I've been in Europe for a long time. But Latin America is absolutely beautiful. There are so many countries. There might be long flights, so I combine that. That's one of the things I will do, so that at least I can share my excitement of having been to Peru, Colombia, whatever. In this case, with my wife, or even my kids twice a year. Also, will also travel. That's one. On a weekly basis, that will be most in the weekend, because in the week it's quite tough. But I tend to do a lot of activity. I need to be. I cannot sit on a chair in the weekend and read a book for 2 hours. I cannot. It just doesn't work. So I need to do sports, and I need a coach for that. Same thing, because again, I fall in the trap. So I have a coach who comes on the Friday evening, the Saturday, sometimes the Sunday. So I keep fit a lot. I love music. I absolutely love music. When I'm on the plane, if you believe I do my emails during 10 hours, forget it. I don't. Yeah, and I don't think anyone does. And those who say they are liars. But I listen to music far more than looking at movies. That relaxes me.
Yeah.
Things like that. Occasionally I read a book. Unfortunately, most of the books I read are business related. So that then again doesn't always bring me at ease. But I can take 6 months to read a book, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So, well, I'm hearing out of Shed, the exercise is the key thing.
It is the key thing. I cannot understand that people can. I really do not understand that people can go through life without having a bit of physical, balance. Do a sport. I don't know, swim, do something.
Yeah.
Because it actually works. And if you don't do it, you feel it. Your body feels it.
Yeah.
Feels it.
Yeah. Also, I think when we do meet and we sometimes eat together, you're quite mindful about what you choose to eat. Actually, Thomas, that's something else that I've noticed about you, to be fair. So, I think you're paying more attention to some of those basics, Shed, than potentially you are aware of. Maybe.
If I wouldn't, Sarah, I would weigh 120 kilos, I think. Jokes aside, all these trips you talk about, they come with lunches and dinners.
Sure.
Every single one of them. If I would not be careful, no. So I have to, and it feels much better also. I mean, having a lunch, and it depends from one country to the other. You have to respect culture again. When you go to France and you have a lunch, you're going to have a glass of wine. Now, whether you like it or you don't, So, but you go to Argentina, Chile, and then again, these people welcome you either in their homes. It's very cultural in Latin America that when you have business meetings, that afterwards they invite you at their house. When I was in Mexico, I was invited by a very interesting lady. She invited her children. I was there in their garden. We probably had 4 hours at the table.
Gorgeous.
So if you don't manage that, by the end of the week, you are, well, not even the end of the week. And I mean, I love wine. Of course, I love wine, but I tend to in the week not have any, at least not during the day. So things like that. I think that, and people underestimate these little things. They underestimate, it's okay. I'll be fine. I'll recover in the weekends. No. And in the evening, I need my hours of sleep. Yeah. I'm okay with 6, 7, but I need the 6, 7. I need them, and I take as much as I can. So a bit of everything.
Brilliant. Thomas, there's always a moment in these conversations where I ask the guest to highlight two pay forwards to anyone listening to this podcast who is wanting to be better under pressure. Out of many of the things you've shared, and potentially something else, but if you feel like there were a couple of things that would be absolutely non-negotiable for you, that you'd lay your money on in terms of being really, really significant in your own ability to manage pressure as a leader doing what you do, what would they be?
The first one I would say, you are the owner of your own planning, week, work schedule. You own it. By that I mean, make sure you have sufficient off time. That's something you need to evaluate yourself. Have off time. Remember what I said about the athletes? Their off time is as precious as their on time. If not, it won't work. But for that, you need to be disciplined. So plan well, be disciplined, stick to it, and think about yourself. You know, it's not being egoistic, it's thinking about yourself. I think that is one. Now the second one is, it's one I use very often. Actually, we haven't talked about it. Do not take yourself or everything too serious. Okay. We are already in a complex environment by itself. You know, you don't need to add to it. We have enough of it. Don't complexify more. When you work with people, simplify things, and yeah, as I said, don't take everything too seriously. It's a bit of general. I used to have someone who was always very stressed, extremely stressed, when it was a she, when she had to do or present in front of people. She was very good, technically very good. But when she had present in front of people, she was so nervous and so stressed. And she says, how do you cope with that? I said, well, then again, we're a little bit different, because to be fair, I enjoy being in front of people, but still I need to prepare properly, but nevertheless. And I tend to tell her, I said, when is your next holiday? She says, why are you asking? I said, just ask, when is your next holiday? In 3 weeks' time, I'm going with my boyfriend to, I don't know where, somewhere. I said, think about that. Think about in 3 weeks' time, what you're going to have to do in 1 hour will have been behind you. It's behind you, it's gone. So focus on, you know, what's something nice, something you're going to enjoy, something you're going to like, yeah? And that might help to say that moment, that presentation, it is important, but don't take it too seriously either. Don't go over the top.
Yeah.
Because I can feel that some people stress by complicating things too much.
Yeah, and also I think one of the key energies I've noticed working alongside you and your team is there has to be a sense of fun or an experimentation around it. I think that's what you bring to a lot of what you are leading, actually. And I know it's not that what you're leading isn't serious, because it is highly serious and significantly impacts the success of the business. And you bring with it a sense of how can we have fun along the way with this? And I have to mention this one moment, Thomas, before we finish this conversation, which will remain with me forever, by the way, is when we were doing that conference in May this year together with your 85 leaders. Thomas arrives at the door with a massive, great chest and you insisted that everybody that walked through the door for those 3 days put their name on their phone and put it in the chest, and you locked it away from 9 till 5:30 every day. So they couldn't even have it in the breaks. They could have it in the evening if they wanted. They can have it in the very early morning if they wanted, but they weren't to have it in the breaks. And that made such an impact on me, not just because you had insisted on it, particularly in the breaks, because I've had other people that have insisted on no, mobiles during the speaking and during the interaction, but during the breaks, that was a whole other level of experimentation. But what really struck me was the level, I think you called it, the level of respect that you witnessed in the room for those 3 days around people's attention and presence. And how that impacted the people that were on stage, who were in a way feeling some pressure in front of their colleagues, in front of their peers, but the attention that they got from the audience because there were no distractions. And the level of energy that was like expandable from the beginning of the day to the end of the day was incredible. And I left that thinking, blimey, what have we done with our capacity for attention?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, again, it's, small things make big changes, because
Yes.
it wasn't that big of a decision to put a couple of mobiles in a box, but it made a huge change. And the feedback, and by the way, this was not a one-off. I can prove it to you. And I didn't know you would ask me that question. This is the box. So I
Yes.
have the box in my office. When I have people coming in, the box is open. They put their phone there up, and I mean it. Your productivity, your focus, your attention, directly your respect, of course, because this thing is a disease. It's a disease. Unfortunately, we need it. Okay. But we do it now systematically. Every single department does it. We actually bought, I don't know, probably about 60 of these boxes, and everybody has one now. But the good thing is, it's not only the attention during the meeting, and why we insisted for the whole day and also during the break, is then at least you can have quality time in the break. And quality time, there were 80 people that are across 13 countries that meet each other once a year all together. I mean, honestly, is it not a bit more fun, instead of running to your email during the 20-minute break, instead of having a chat with someone? It's off time. If your off time is on time, well, then you never have off time. And I think it's a small thing that makes huge changes in big companies. I mean, I'm very often, I'm 6-7 times a year in Paris with the global executive committee, etc. At that level, people sometimes think we don't need this. We can do without this. Trust me, they can't. Okay. They can't. So little things make big differences, and respect. And I like, and yes, I should have mentioned it, but when I meant don't take everything too serious, is that combine a portion of fun. Yeah. Because again, nobody can keep focused professionally 3 days in a row from 9 in the morning till 6 in the evening without having some, off time. And we all have to eat. And I think that's something I certainly learned in Latin America. I mean, they like their caipirinhas, they like their nice barbecues, and well, why not? I mean, I also like it. And it stimulates relation between people. So easy. So easy.
Yes.
And it doesn't cost a big effort. You just need to plan it. So anyway, I would probably add that third one also. Add some fun in what you do. Yes.
Thank you, Thomas. Honestly, so many gems in there, and it's such fun to have you on the podcast. So thank you.
I really enjoyed this. I mean, I honestly thought 1 hour would have been a lot, and I have no idea of time, but I really enjoyed it. If I would have known, I would have waited 6 months. I don't know how much we waited to do this, but anyway, it was joyful like always with you. So thank you very much for the opportunity. And
you're very welcome,
follow
Thomas.
your other podcasts attentively.
Good. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Better Under Pressure with me, Sara Milne Rowe. If you enjoyed it, please do subscribe and let us know what you found useful or what you'd like to know more about. And don't forget, if you'd like to sign up for our fortnightly Pressure Points newsletter, where I summarise key points from each conversation, you can find a link at saramilnerowe.com. If you're interested in any of the practices mentioned, check out my book, The Shed Method. Alternatively, you can find us at Coaching Impact or me on LinkedIn and Instagram. Better Under Pressure was produced by the fab team at Smart Cookie Media. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, goodbye.